Welcome to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. Hope you're having a great day. Speaking of Citizens Bank Studio, I mentioned last week that I had the opportunity to moderate the Ocean Springs Mayor Forum. Let's put it that way. I have a hard time saying the word mayoral. But it was really good. I was disappointed a couple of the candidates chose not to come. Felt like that was a bit of a slap in the face to the organizers and to voters when people in the community donate their hard-earned money to create a great forum. All four candidates were there 4 years ago. We should have been great to have them there this year. But so be it. It is what it is. Voters will ultimately choose who they want based on that. And I thought it was, for the second time I had the opportunity to moderate it because I live in Biloxi, not in Ocean Springs, so I don't have a dog in the hunt. Although I have a sister that lives in Ocean Springs and many, many friends who live there. And I love Ocean Springs. We talk about it on this show all the time. But I bumped into Greg Cronin from the Citizens Bank, and Greg's a good leader in the community. He's always out there doing what's good for our community, and admire him greatly. But it was good to see him, and we really appreciate having Citizens Bank as a sponsor of this studio for the Ricky Matthews Show. Listen, have a great show today. We're going to spend some time with Martha Allen from Extra Table in the second half of the show to get an update on how the holidays went and where are they today as they continue to provide food to food pantries across the entire state of Mississippi. What an incredible effort that is. But in the first half, I'm looking forward to chatting with my friend Hunter Dawkins, who's the president, CEO, publisher, and chief bottle washer
That's right.
at the Gazebo Gazette here in coastal Mississippi. Because I often say about community publishers that you have to be a jack of all trades. And my friend Hunter is that. He's also a contributor for SuperTalk Mississippi News. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. Like I told you, Ricky, I'm here in Baton Rouge just picking up the print edition. Every Friday they have a weekly printer, and really technically that's the only place within a 100-mile radius that prints for the cost that I can afford, and we can make sense of it for the Mississippi newspaper, at least on the coast. So
it's really unfortunate. Listen, when I was at the Sun Herald, getting weekly printing opportunities was a very competitive space. I mean, Hattiesburg American was big time into it. And of course, they were printing USA Today at the time. I think, I think Jackson was doing some of that. Over in Alabama, we were doing it big time across our numerous newspapers over there. There was a lot of competition in Louisiana, so you didn't have to look very far to find a place to print your newspaper. But with the demise of printed newspapers in America, and even the biggest newspapers are centralizing their printing facilities. The Sun Herald, for example, is printed in Jackson. So it's amazing to think about that, actually. But boy, I mean, for a small town community newspaper like yours, it creates big challenges. Thank goodness you're actually able to find somebody.
Yeah, it was very important to me after the Hattiesburg plant shut down that I could really be able to provide an opportunity to where I could pick up the paper and give the same day opportunity to get it out to the vending boxes and the post office for periodicals.
Yeah, pretty amazing. Even when I was with Advanced Condé Nast, we expanded the size of our printing operation in Mobile, and we were actually printing the Times-Picayune in Mobile for a period of time, and now I think it's printed in Baton Rouge today. So I guess maybe there's a lot of centralizing happening in Baton Rouge these days. But
yeah,
good to see you there. How's business for you? How are things going?
It's doing well. And as I think we talked about last time, or at least a little bit off the air, talked about the municipal elections, and as you had previously mentioned too, with Ocean Springs and Harrison County, there's every municipality is really picking up here right after the qualification deadlines, and everybody is really starting to get their name out there, buy ads, put this, that, and everything else together. So
yeah. Well, it's a real opportunity for you. I mean, this is again, it's like Christmas time. the holidays, it's when the political situation, particularly in a municipal election, and how it affects the gazebo, because that's a really good thing for you, because you can be the center of the democratic process in more ways than one.
And absolutely, and just like you said about hosting the debate last week, or for you, Ricky, I'm got the process. We've got the Long Beach political debate scheduled for March the 1st at 1 o'clock at the Senior Center in Long Beach. And in Pass Christian, the next Saturday, March the 8th, we have the scheduled debate at 1 o'clock at the Pass Christian High School Gymnasium. The Gazebo Gazette is hosting both of those. And we're going to, have a panel we'll put together, and then we're also going to have the school districts. Both school districts going to have kids set together a panel and ask some questions, because, as you know, not only through the democratic process, it's great having two quality school districts have their kids come out and ask some questions to candidates, because that's just as important as everybody else.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Hunter, have you been watching the seafood labeling bill in the legislature?
I have, but not as much as you have, my friend. But I have, and I talk to JT about it every now and then. And it's getting into the part of the legislature too, where the difference in that, Ricky, and I'm just going to tell you outside the box, not exactly the details of what you're probably going to refer to. But there is a process of, okay, you have the coastal delegation, who is obviously big, all for that labeling. But then you have the upper north of Jackson echelon with, a lot of restaurants and a lot of this, that, and the other that are not adhere to making those decisions. And just like we're talking about the municipal level, people down here, at least home, they ask me, they say, well, how come we don't have more, not only representation, but statewide candidates? And I'm sure you realize, Ricky, we've never had a governor from the Gulf Coast that called the Gulf Coast home. We've had, I don't even know that if we even had a lieutenant governor from the coast. Michael Watson is the first Secretary of State that I can remember.
Yeah, he's the first statewide officer. Yes,
exactly, from the Gulf Coast. And that being said, there's a reason for that. Of course, we're gaining population and things as such, but who's in control? And that's the question we have to ask.
I think the issue with the labeling, I think, unfortunately, what I'm hearing is that a lot of the opposition is actually coming from the coast, sadly. The coast has an issue. And I think what's happened is that too many restaurants were living in a gray area, okay? So and this shouldn't be a discussion about Gulf fresh seafood versus imports. It shouldn't be that. It really is a conversation about menu integrity. Okay, there's something unique. There should be a premium, in fact, around Gulf fresh seafood, and this is not a discussion that's about being against imports, because the truth is, if you think about it, with the amount of demand with casino restaurants and others, you're going to have some import fill some gaps. There's no question about that. So it's not about Gulf fresh seafood versus imports. It's about the way you're presenting it on the menu, and whether, in some cases it's downright fraud, and we've heard about those cases.
Even so, Ricky, in marketplaces, when you go to quality.
and then of course the DNA analysis that showed the vast majority of the restaurants that were tested were saying it was one thing on the menu and serving something different. And we just can't have that. That's fraud. That's fraud too.
And you realize too, Ricky, this has been going on for at least the last 15 years. When I used to work in Washington, D.C. for Congressman Taylor's staff, I worked on the agriculture committee and all those little things that were in there. Gene was big proponent of the farm bill because it had involved the first time there had ever been an introduction of food labeling. That means, obviously going FDA approved, making sure all of that was Americanized food rather than something from China, at least, or in a ballpark figure of that. So
Yeah. You saw from what I posted, and people can read more about this by going to the Ricky Matthews Facebook page. I also wrote a column that will be posted at the SuperTalk Mississippi site. You can go to supertalk.fm or go to the app and just look in the opinion section in the news section. But um, but I think what's happened to present, they're saying that there's too much burden on the restaurants for presenting, for meeting this labeling requirement. But I think they're using that to sort of shield what they're actually doing, which is misleading. It's really about misleading people, and the margins are higher because they've been able to get away with it, and we've just got to fix that. I mean, I'm not calling anybody out. I'm just saying it's reflected poorly on this market and our seafood legacy, and we've got to fix that. It's a stain on the Mississippi Gulf Coast right now. We'll complete this part of the conversation when we get on the other side. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. We're visiting with my friend Hunter Dawkins from the Gazebo Gazette. And when we went to break, we were talking about seafood integrity, about labeling, and the labeling bill that's in front of our legislature now. It zoomed through the House of Representatives, not a dissenting vote. Every single legislator, bipartisanly, voted for the labeling bill. A similar bill was in the Senate, in a Senate committee, and was killed in committee. And so now we have this bill that was approved by the House. It goes over to the Senate, and the Senate gets the chance to do this again, to focus on this again. And again, I'm hearing that there's a lobby in the Senate opposed to it. And what I think senators need to hear is this, that you can't bend to this. This international news has been made about how our dishonest practices in coastal Mississippi around seafood. That's just a reality. Go do your search, and you'll see for yourself. We got to fix this. Alabama fixed it in Alabama. Louisiana fixed it in Louisiana. Catfish farmers in Mississippi fixed it across the state of Mississippi. So the reality is we got to do this. We have to bring integrity back into the system. And for restaurants, it could create an opportunity for you to be able to sell a premium for Gulf Fresh seafood. People would understand that because it clearly costs more than if you were to buy imports from some freshwater lake in some country far away. I mean, that's and trying to sell it as fresh Gulf seafood. It's amazing that these kinds of things are happening. But here's the other thing. This is the most important thing. The DNA testing was done once. It's coming back. DNA testing's coming back, and it will continue to come back until this is fixed. And so more bad headlines are in our future. It's time to pass the bill and get this behind us. I mean, we got to put integrity first. It's just really that important. And I hope that the Senate will lead their way through this, and let's get that bill signed and do what Alabama and Louisiana clearly saw a need to do. We need to do it too, because we're the ones making the headlines today. Anything else you want to say about that, Hunter, before we move?
Well, but Ricky, one of the things that I'll remind you, and there's going to be a line in the sand that there's going to be drawn between tourism and the labeling. There shouldn't be. I think you and I would both agree there shouldn't be, but casino execs, restaurant execs, they're going to try to draw a line in the sand on there. And I don't think that should be there. And I think this bill determining the factor that it shouldn't be there, that's going to cause some problems, at least from the lobbying perspective. So,
well, if we pass on this, if we let it die in the Senate, then more black eyes are in our future. And I like the bill. The House bill has the Secretary of Agriculture and the DMR both involved in policing. I think that's a good approach to take.
Of course.
And I think we'll be in good shape. The other thing that they're doing, there's been a lot of controversy surrounding this whole notion of leasing oyster areas along the coast of Mississippi. Can you summarize for people what that issue is about? And then also, you actually attended a meeting not long ago about it.
Well, Ricky, another thing about it, I'm not proposing or bragging about myself, but after this bill, there was a bill 2 years ago that passed the legislature I wrote about in the paper, at least, where it started creating aquaculture leases out there for these oyster fishermen, and the public lands was opened up once they began this aquaculturing process which, is harvesting oysters is the better
Yeah.
way to put it.
Yeah. Above
And
bottom. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And they then opened up the land of lease. The problem with that was that only two people with some big money, and I'm not calling out names either, Ricky, but two people with big money virtually bought all of the oyster leasing land west in the west ship channel of Gulfport all the way to Bay St. Louis, that Mississippi Sound area. And because of that, there's there's no way oystermen can go in there and do a great job without having to provide money, because they have to pay back money for shells, they have to pay back money for this, that, and the other. And I recently went to a Pascrashan. Now it was about a month ago, Pascrashan oyster fisherman meeting, and the fishermen, were pretty upset about not having the ability to go on their own.
Who held the meeting?
It was Ryan Bradley, one of my good friends, who's the Mississippi Commercial Fisheries United executive director. He's also a lobbyist up in Jackson for a lot of these commercial fishing groups. But Ryan did a great job of putting that group together. The problem they had with there was some delegation there too, and they didn't exactly, the fishermen or the oyster fishermen didn't exactly get along with the individuals, at least, that were on the state or the coastal delegation, because of the determining factors that were made, and there wasn't really acknowledgement about any changes that could be made at that time.
Hmm. So,
and as you know, Ricky, Pascrashan and Bay St. Louis used to be the oyster capital of the South, because that's where you would go to get oysters.
Yeah.
Then you had the release of the Bonnie Carey spillway that added a whole other problematic. Then also, that was one of the reasons why the state legislature freed up these leases, because of that. But the problem is, when you have nothing and you're opening up the areas to the public, you're not going to get anything.
Who is there representing the legislature?
In the meeting?
Yes.
Senator Mike Thompson, who's represents Pascrashan, Long Beach, and parts of Bay St. Louis, parts of Waveland, and parts of Gulfport.
How did it go? How did he handle it?
Mike handled it very well. He tried to answer the questions, but a lot of oyster fishermen didn't really come with questions as much as it was concerns and putting out their positions. And it was kind of a town hall meeting style, which I don't think Ryan had intended it to be that way, but it was a serious concern from the oyster fishermen, who, are the commercial ones. I'm fully behind. So.
Yeah, listen. You have to. I learned this after leading the oil recovery efforts in Alabama for Governor Riley as a volunteer. When we had meetings down in southern Alabama focused on this, looking at the commercial fishermen, the impact on them, and so on. What I learned, I knew this from being a publisher, but what I saw in great display at this meeting is you have to engage the community. You have to give them an opportunity to speak. You have to have an open forum. You have to have the opportunity to educate them along the sides of the walls and give them as much information as you can give them, and you have to listen. And so, maybe it wasn't intended to be that type of meeting, but man, it's important to hear what they have to say.
Well, and if you open it up to that forum for individuals to come around and talk, that's exactly what you're going to get. I know that from working with Congressman Taylor, too. We would have town hall meetings all the time, and we always had to prepare Congressman Taylor, like, okay, these are the questions we're going to get. This is all the details as a staff. We would 100% be about discussion about the specific issues. And my question to you, Ricky, I know there was a development after Katrina of the oysters. At least I believe Dave Dennis was the one that was on the chairman of that oyster fisherman. But I thought you might have been a part of that, because I knew Governor Barber was responsible for creating that. I don't really even know what happened to that, because that was like, well, we're going to get 1 million sack of oysters, but then we didn't, and it just kind of died down.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't remember, to be honest with you, how that all turned out, but I am paying attention now, and I watched the red snapper commercial side where big red snapper. Well, actually some of the guys who owned the leases didn't even fish. They just
Yeah.
sublet their leases to others who actually did the fishing, and they were like redfish barons making tons of money and a lot of focus. I don't want that to happen in coastal
Well,
Mississippi.
that's what's happening with these oyster fishermen, and that's what they let Senator Thompson know that hey, we have no way to be able to grab this to be able to make it our own because we're having to not only rent the property but sell away the shells.
Yeah.
Where you end up making pretty good money off oyster shells.
Hey, we're almost out of time, but look, I want to get you back in the next week or so, and I want to talk to you more about something that I was inspired by at last week at Paul Gallo's memorial. And J.T. Mitchell and I talked about it Friday, and I want to talk more about it with you. But one of the things, Robert Johnson, a Democrat, Steve Holland, a Democrat, spoke at his memorial, and to learn about how two men, Steve and Paul, and then of course Robert and Paul, can disagree on just about every policy issue, but love each other the way they did is a great statement about why can't we have the Tip O'Neill Reagan days back, and let's not project national division and approaches to the state. We need to do better in this state to debate but still love each other at the end of the debate. I want to talk to you more about that in the future, but it's been a pleasure to catch up with you, my friend.
Thank you, Ricky. Always good to talk to you, and hopefully we'll get everything going.
You bet. When we come back, we'll have Martha Allen join us. We'll see you after this.